Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webcast. My name is Christine Dursey. I'm the Executive Director of APA Ohio and Vice Chair of the New Urbanism Division, and I will be the moderator for today's webcast. Today, Friday, February 28, 2014, we will hear the presentation, Planning Out of the Box and Keeping Your Plan Off the Shelf. For technical help during today's webcast, type your questions in the chat box found in the webcast toolbar to the right of your screen, or you can call the 1-800 number shown. For content questions related to the presentation, type those in the questions box also located in the webinar toolbar to the right of your screen. We will answer those at the end of the presentation. On your screen is the list of sponsoring chapters and divisions. I would like to thank all of those participating sponsors for making these webcasts possible. Today's webcast is sponsored by the Northern New England chapter. For more information on this chapter and how to become a member, you can visit www.nnecapa.org. To learn more about all our chapters, you can visit planning.org/chapters, and to learn about all our divisions, planning.org/divisions. Coming up on your screen is a list of our upcoming webcasts. To register for these webcasts, please visit www.utah-apa.org/webcast. And to log your CM credits for attending today's webcast, visit planning.org, go to your dashboard, select activities by date, select events in the green box, select Ohio as a filter, and then you can go ahead and select today's event. We've had a lot of folks having trouble selecting normally just by date. You can give that a try, or you can always select through the Ohio chapter filter. And of course, like us on Facebook, Planning Webcast Series, to receive up-to-date information on our upcoming sessions. Just search Planning Webcast Series on Facebook. And we are recording today's webcast. It will be available on our YouTube channel. All you have to do is search Planning Webcast on YouTube. And a PDF of the PowerPoint will also be available at ohioplanning.org/webcast presentations. And I'll show these links once again at the very end of our presentation. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and quickly introduce our two speakers for today so we can get started. Our first speaker is Sandrine Thibault. Sandrine has served as the City of Burlington's comprehensive planner since January 2008. For the past 2.5 years, she has managed Plan BTD, a master plan for the downtown and waterfront area of Burlington. This planning process has engaged over 2,000 diverse stakeholders and has been the most comprehensive public engagement process the city has ever seen. Her prior experience includes 3 years as a principal planner with the State of New Hampshire's Office of Energy and Planning, 2 years as a principal planner with the North County Council in New Hampshire, and 1 year as zoning review coordinator for the City of Baton Rouge in Louisiana. She holds a master's in urban and regional planning from the University of New Orleans and a bachelor's in urban planning from the University of Montreal, Canada. Our second speaker is Liz Barrell. Liz is a senior planner in the Strategic and Transportation Planning Division at the City of Santa Monica and has over 21 years of planning experience in the Los Angeles region in the cities of West Hollywood and Santa Monica. Liz has managed projects including a zoning ordinance revision, housing elements, landmarks plans, development projects, and co-managed with Peter James the Bergamot Area Plan, which was adopted in September 2013. The BAP is already beginning to transform an industrial-turned-creative office area into a transit-adjacent mixed-use neighborhood by the Expo Line station, scheduled to open in 2016. A native of Los Angeles, Liz holds a Bachelor of Science from UC Berkeley and a Master's of Science in Urban and Regional Planning from the Israel Institute of Technology. and is a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners since 1996. She also volunteers in her community and served 3 terms, including chairperson on the Los Angeles Unified School District's Construction Bond Oversight Committee, which oversees the planning and expenditure of more than $19 billion in taxpayer funds for new and improved school campuses. So, without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Sandrine, who will begin our presentation. Sandrine, it's all you.
Thank you so much, Christine, and welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining today. It's wonderful to know that the webcast was at full capacity. I don't know if everybody will sign in today to join us, but that is really fantastic news for us, so thank you so much. So planning out of the box and keeping your plan off the shelf, you know, both projects you'll hear about today, Liz and I presented together at the Partnership for Sustainability grantee convening this past year. As both of our projects, we were lucky enough to be funded through the Federal Partnership for Sustainability back in 2010. So, you know, today you'll hear a little bit about what we've done for community engagement, about our plans themselves, but really how we made our plans, both of our plans, accessible and attractive, and how we really created a lot of energy around both our projects to, you know, ramp up the implementation of both of these plans. So I'm going to jump right in and start with our project in Burlington. And so for those of you who are not familiar with Burlington, this is the largest city in the state of Vermont with only 42,000 residents. So we are the smallest, largest city of any state around the country. We are on beautiful Lake Champlain, very close to the Canadian border. Our land area is about 15.5 square miles. And over the last few decades, our downtown and waterfront area has seen a tremendous and pretty traumatic transformation, really since the early 80s. So we now have a very vibrant downtown, of which Church Street, which is our pedestrian mall, is really the epicenter of activity. And you can see pictures here of what it used to be before and what it is now. And our waterfront along Lake Champlain has also seen tremendous transformation and has been reclaimed from what used to be an industrial lumber yard and fuel storage facilities to now beautiful public park with adjoining marina and lots of activities, although there are still tremendous opportunities for additional development along the waterfront and anywhere in the downtown for that matter. And so being the largest city in the state of Vermont, we provide the only urban experience really in the entire state, being pretty small still, but we have big city dreams and big city ideals with a very small population, and we have to remind ourselves that we live in a very small and rural state some days. But you get a feel for what this urban experience is in Burlington with some of our older and newer buildings here on this slide. So our project in Burlington was really focused on the downtown and waterfront area of the city. The citywide master plan has had an action plan for a couple of decades now to create a more downtown-specific plan. And we had started working on a scope of work and budget for this project when the Partnership for Sustainable Community grant program came along back in 2010, and we were lucky enough to get the funding. So this was for us, this was a 3-phase process. We began with a series of existing conditions analyses to really be able to start the conversation from not from perceptions that were you know, part of the community here, but really based on reality of what exists in our downtown today. The second phase of the project, which really I'll be talking mostly about today, was the master planning process and the community engagement process that we did over about an 18-month period. And we are now in the third phase of that process that I'll also mention later on in my presentation. We are writing a new form-based code for this area of the city, for this downtown and waterfront area. So a little bit on the community process that we've gone through in Burlington for this project. We are known for having a very engaged citizenry in Burlington. Unfortunately, most of the people who usually get involved are those usual suspects that come out to meetings and usually give the same type of input day in and day out. So at the start of this project, we recognized and we really wanted to make an effort to reach out to different populations and get a far better reach, making sure that we heard from underrepresented communities. We have a lot of refugees, new Americans in Burlington, you know, the low-income folks. We wanted to hear from the kids and the college kids, but also younger grade school-aged kids. So we really made an effort to do that. And we're also recognizing that everyone has very busy lives these days, so how do we get to engage people and keep them engaged and interested in this process? So we really followed 3 simple rules for our community engagement process. The first one was keep it simple. We wanted to make sure that whatever we did or asked people to do, it was simple. So, you know, we didn't do 10-page survey and so on and so forth. We wanted people to have an easy time to navigate the website or go online to do whatever we needed them to do. And also we made sure not to use planner jargon the way we all know how to do so well these days. So we made sure that we talked to people in lay terms. We also made sure that people were interested and that you know, we weren't talking at people for hours, but that we really engaged people in an actual conversation, and that we really provided a feedback loop to make sure that people knew that we were listening to them and could also see everyone else's input. So that was very important to us. We really opened up that conversation. And the third rule was really just to try to make it fun as planning can be. You know, I'm not sure if it can be the most fun thing in the world, but we really tried to, you know, we had ice cream socials and so on and so forth to try to bring a positive and interesting and fun vibe for everyone. I don't know for you, but if I go somewhere and I'm not having a good time, usually I'm not going to go back and I'm not going to, you know, do this activity again. So we made sure that we used art, we had food everywhere, we kept things really upbeat to get people excited about our process. So I'm not going to talk about everything we've done for public engagement because we did a tremendous amount of it. Again, I mentioned this was an 18-month process, planning and engagement process, with really a more intensive 6-month period. So just to mention a few things that we did that I think really helped us kind of hyped up the vibe about this project and get people really excited. One thing is we had a week-long design charrette that lasted 7 days. We were set up in a studio right on Church Street on our pedestrian mall downtown. People could come in the studio from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night and talk to the consultants, talk to us, staff, draw on maps, write comments. We also had an art contest that took place in the weeks prior to the design charrette. And all the entries of the art contest were hung in the studio during the charrette, and people could come in and vote and sort of take a look at that, which was really, really great. So we had about 500 people participating during that week. For us in Burlington, that was very successful. It was a very positive process. People really, really enjoyed that. And on this slide on the upper left, you can see the public input web tool that we designed. This is something we built in-house here in Burlington. And really what that was is we took all of the comments that we had heard from different public meetings and from the design charrette and put them all on the web. so that there was that feedback loop and people could see what others had said also. So people could go on and look at and read what other people had said, you know, other people's ideas and comments, and they could vote, well, give support or not on that particular idea or comment, agree or not. And then they could also add their own comment online via this web tool on different topics or on the location specific, you know, if they had a comment specific to a location. So with this web tool, we had over 1,400 individual users, which was incredible for us. That blew us away. We received an additional 700 comments via the web tool that we hadn't gotten at regular public meetings or during the design charrette. And there were 45,000 votes were cast with a thumbs up and thumbs down. So what this does is it really gave us a good feel for where people tend to agree, you know, those ideas and comments that were the most popular and the most, or not. We really made sure that the most popular ones got included in the plan and that, you know, things that people didn't agree with didn't. So that was very, very helpful for our process in Burlington. And people just loved it. They loved the fact that they could do this at home, sitting on the couch, whenever it was convenient for them. So that was great. We also went on a roadshow. Instead of organizing our own meetings and asking people to come to us, we really made an effort to reach out to all sorts of different organizations and groups and said, can we get on your agendas, please? We want to come talk to you guys about this project. We're really excited. And I stopped counting after about 50 of those meetings that we did, which was really, so that was a huge effort on our part, but it was well worth the time. And you can see our Facebook page. You know, we used a lot of social media to kind of hype up the vibe on the project. We had great support from our local media to really create a buzz about this project, and we really did. You know, Christine in the introduction mentioned we had 2,000 people involved in this project. I think it's actually more like 3,000 people got involved one way or the other in this project. So for a city of 42,000 people, for us, that was really tremendous. And I think really what was the most successful piece of our community engagement process for this planning process was it was really the combination of opportunities that we gave people to be engaged. So we had, you know, the regular meetings, we had the design charrette that was so much more flexible time-wise for folks to come and participate. You know, and then we had the online tools as well. That was really great. So just a quick overview. I'm not going to go through the plan necessarily, but I do want to explain a little bit how it's organized, and then you'll see a lot more of it as I keep going through the slides. But it's really kind of a funnel idea where we start at the top with 7 place-based themes. Those were developed using current and existing plans we already had in the city. We had gone through a lot of visioning in Burlington in the last decade, so we sort of pulled a lot of that from previous documents that we had, and also from what we heard during this particular planning process. So we have these 7 place-based themes that then bring us these 8 big ideas, and you can see them, they're listed on the right here. So this is all about, you know, a vibrant economy and climate change and how to deal with that, and transportation and housing. We have a huge shortage of housing in Burlington, and the housing costs are very high. So that's a huge issue that we're trying to deal with actually on even a regional basis here in the Burlington region. So then these 8 big ideas are then taken and sort of funneled through, and this around the plan section later in the document really shows how these 8 big ideas can manifest themselves on the ground. So that's where we start to show illustrations of what redevelopment could be and what some you know, infill development could be. But this plan is really all about continuing to create a vibrant economy in Burlington. We've been pretty successful at keeping that, but how do we keep our major employers here? How do we bring more of them? How do we add some more housing to add more vitality in our downtown and waterfront area, and how do we bring people in and out, make sure that they use alternative transportation, and so on and so forth. So just quickly, these are the 7 place-based themes that we have. Again, you can see it's all about the vibrant economy and more choices in housing and transportation, active, healthy living, and so on and so forth. So what we really wanted to concentrate on in this particular webcast is how we made our plan very accessible and attractive. And in Burlington, the way we did that, and that was thanks to our consultants who had this crazy idea. We thought it was crazy at first, but it took us all about 30 seconds to think it was a great idea, is that the plan is actually a magazine. So think of a magazine. When you buy a magazine, it's a series of articles, so you can pick it up, read an article, put it down, pick it up later, read a different one. So it's really set up that way, and a great place for you to view the plan in the magazine format online is to go to this website, issue.com. On this slide, if you go to this website and search Plan BTV, it will come up and you can view it. You can even, I believe, order a copy if you wish to do so. But making it a magazine style really allowed us to get this crazy buzz out there. People wanted copies. When we had the discussion draft of the plan out and available for review, we had copies stolen. I would walk in a boutique on Church Street and see a copy on the coffee table. So it's everywhere, and people love it and people read it. So the next few slides you'll see are really 2-page spreads of the plan itself, just to kind of show you how it's laid out and how it really looks like a magazine. So this is just the table of content. And you can see we included a user guide, and I love this picture, which is actually the bookshelf behind me right now in my office, because we really didn't want this plan to just be like any other ones that we just put on the shelf, collecting dust that no one ever reads again. So we made sure that didn't happen. And I think we were very successful at this. Still today, people walk up to me on the street and say, I read this cover to cover. It is fantastic. So people really enjoy it. So, making it visually attractive and you really working on a great layout made a huge difference. So using a lot of pictures, we made our point. We included everything we wanted to as far as, all the important stuff, but we really tried to a degree to limit the amount of text that we had. Often you can say a lot using pictures, an image, some infographic, all sorts of stuff. So making this beautiful layout really made it so much more interesting for people to read, and once people read it, they understand it, they buy into it. So using infographics was also great. We used that in part of the plan to convey a lot of the results from the phase 1 studies that we did that I mentioned. So a lot of that basic information, and you can see some of them. It's hard to read on the slides, but an infographics was just a fun and very attractive way to present the results of that. People love looking at those charts and cool images, and I know that a lot of people do this, these days. So the short article, the magazine style short article, again, was really great too, because people could pick it up, read this one, for example, the housing nut, get a sense for what we're talking about. They could put it down, pick it up some other time. I mean, it's a perfect bathroom reading type thing. And you can see on the lower image here the little man icon and the little tool icon. That is something very different we did in this plan also, is that instead of having an implementation section, often that ends up at the end of the document, we incorporated implementation steps throughout the document. So as you read the 8 big ideas or the around the plan section that gets more into detail about what can happen on the ground, right away, as you're reading on housing, as this example on the slide, you can also read about if we want to deal with those issues that we discuss, how do we deal with them, what are the next steps that we have to do, and it's right there. People don't have to flip over to the implementation chapter to figure that out. It's all in one place, and that was really great. People really love that. I think it's helped really put the focus on implementing this plan and actually using it and keeping it alive. So just a few more spreads on some transportation-related pieces of the plan here. We talk about how the pedestrian is king in a downtown environment, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to go through everything. And this then, once you go through big ideas, this is the around the plan section that I mentioned earlier, where we present how these big ideas actually manifest themselves on the ground. So you can see the lower spreads, which is one example of the Main Street corridor in the downtown, where there's a lot of before and after pictures where we show what could be if some of the underdeveloped or surface parking lot or great infill sites could be redeveloped. And we talk a lot about, complete streets, improvements, and so on and so forth. And that's really where it kind of, where the rubber meets the road, I should say. So all of this buzz that we created with the project, and the fact that the plan was just such a great document as a magazine, really helped us create that buzz and keep that energy going. Once the plan was adopted in June of 2013, so it's going to be a year soon, and I have to say implementation was underway even before the plan was adopted. The Planning Commission is the body here that worked on this document and reviewed it, and when they sent it to the City Council for adoption, they also sent zoning regulation changes that they felt were needed right away to happen in Burlington, to just right away to start making this plan happen on the ground. So that was pretty fabulous. So I'm going to go through just a few things that is going on now as far as the implementation of the plan that we're working on, because there's just so much hype and vibe about it and so much activity going on. So the main piece of it is that we are in the midst of writing a form-based code for the downtown area and the waterfronts only for this area of the city. It is already a mixed-use neighborhood, and really what matters is the form and the character. So this makes a lot of sense, and we should have a draft of this ready for the public to view and review in about a month or two. That's our hope, but this is just a snapshot of what it will most likely look like. The Rail Yard Enterprise Project, in the plan, we, the graphic on the right here on the slide shows the expansion of street grid in that area of the city, which is right next to the rail yard, to a functioning rail yard that we have in our southern waterfront. So the plan speaks to expanding the street grid and really adding more developable land. So there's tremendous opportunities there for more development in that area, which is the south of our downtown. So there's a scoping study that is being finalized as we speak to really look more in depth as to the feasibility of expanding the street grid there, which would relieve a lot of the traffic that we have in this area and provide, again, a lot more economic development opportunities there. So that's really great to see for us. And the Public Investment Action Plan, this was a public process that's been going on that started about a year ago that our administration, the new mayor here in Burlington, started. And this is for tax increment financing that we have for our waterfront TIF district. So this was a public process. Anyone could come in and provide concepts, ideas that, of course, had to be in line with our plan and really help implement the vision of the plan. So this was very successful, and now we have 5 projects that are going to the voters next Tuesday. So this is very, very timely for a $9.5 million of public investment through TIF financing. with 5 different projects. One is a new marina. The picture on the right you can see is the Moran plant, which is an old cold electricity generation plan that has gone through all sorts of ideas for renovation. We now have a new one. Hopefully this one will work and go through. The new marina adds 160 new slips and moorings on our waterfront, and we desperately need them. We turn away people all the time. So this is very exciting. We have these 5 new projects that will most likely be funded and go through and be happening in the next few years. And this is all, again, all as a result of this planning process we've gone through. Parking is a huge issue in Burlington, and it's something that we've talked about a lot during this Plan BTV planning process. And the energy around that discussion, which wasn't always easy, but in the end ended up being a very positive one. We now have the city working with the private business community in developing a parking management plan to better manage the parking we have now. We have a surplus. There's a perception that we don't have enough parking in our downtown. I'm sure many of you deal with the same issue. We have plenty in Burlington, and the issue is that most of that is privately owned, so how can we better manage this along with our public parking to fully use what we have. So the hope of this public-private partnership is to create a public-private entity that will manage the parking district-wide for the entire downtown, and that will also develop and manage a transportation demand management program for employees and residents of the downtown. So that is to be continued. We'll see what happens with that. And then the other thing I just quickly wanted to mention, part of the plan is the Green Machine, which talks all about stormwater improvements in the city, and there is a pretty substantive project going on right now in what we call the College Street watershed, which is a small part of our downtown that drains directly into the lake. So we want to do a lot of Green Street improvements. There's some infiltration plazas planned as part of this, and this is moving forward. So hopefully soon in the future this will come online and be happening. And this is my last slide, so just a few challenges that we have here in Burlington, I think, is to continue to set the priorities. You know, this is all the implementation next steps, as I mentioned, were integrated throughout the document, throughout the plan. And the prioritization of that is happening on a kind of ad hoc basis, you know, working with different departments and with the city administration. But we're well on our way to implement many of the ideas presented in the plan. Adopting the form-based code will also be an interesting process for us here in Burlington. Lots of education needs to happen before, you know, that gets adopted, but we're hopeful that it will happen. The partnership for the parking management, as I mentioned, and really engaging the citizens and continue to keep them abreast and aware of what's going on. And that's something I've continued to do. I have an email list of about 1,500 people that I still send project updates to on a regular basis to let them know what is going on as far as the implementation of this planning process. They've been engaged in the planning process. We want them to be engaged in the implementation of the plan as well. That's so important. So making it happen is really, you know, all the work that we have to do now. And with that, I'm done here. So I'm going to switch over to Elizabeth for her presentation on Santa Monica, and I will be here for questions later.
Okay. So I'm assuming now that my mic is on and that you can hear me. And so I'm Liz Barrell. I'm from the city of Santa Monica, and I want to acknowledge I think there are about 614 people on the webinar right now, so thank you to all of you for joining us today. Oh, sorry, my screen just disappeared. Wait, go back. Okay, I think it was quiet for too long. So when you hear about, and you probably think of some images like this one, and this is indeed our beautiful coastline, our famous Santa Monica Pier and the Yacht Harbor. We have 90,000 residents in the city of Santa Monica, but in the daytime we have more like 250,000. And 7.5 million visitors come through our city every year. So when we do our planning, we're planning not only for the 90,000 residents, but really keeping in mind all those others who come into our 8.3 square miles. We have a very diverse economy, and so have a mostly developed city, so that our projects are generally infill development, generally mixed use, along with the lines of what's known in the business as smart growth. But the beautiful beachfront is not where this project is. This project is actually in the eastern part of the city, and we call the Bergamot area. We have a light rail coming into the city. It's going to be going from downtown Los Angeles, leading through West LA, and we have 3 stations within the city of Santa Monica. The city, the region, I should say, is investing $1.5 billion in this transit investment. It's about 64,000 daily riders projected, and so far the first part of the expo that has opened has already met and even exceeded the ridership. So we really do expect a lot of people to take advantage of the expo, because the traffic here, frankly, is really bad, and having options, having opportunities to get into work in a different way is something that we here in the LA region are lacking and are looking forward to. So the city, in anticipation of this happening, invested $7 million in betterments just at Bergamot Station. The city is, in fact, investing more in the other stations as well, in order to make sure that the station was designed in a way that integrates with our art center, which is right next door. We'll get to that in a bit, next to the station. And we've been with great excitement, we have been watching the building of the expo line. So this is January 2013, actually. You can see the bridge getting started. This is Olympic Boulevard to the left, and there the bridge is going over, heading east towards the towards Bergamot Station and our plan area, which is over here. In May, you can see utilities going in, underground stuff. Then you could see or internal stuff, and then you can see here concrete starting to get laid. In August, we had almost finished. November, pretty much finished, and you can see all of this construction, large construction machinery that's been out there. Earlier this week, I went out and took a picture to see how are we doing today. The construction equipment is gone. You see this tree survived. We have very strict tree protection provisions in our city, so it seems to have done well. And that bridge is going to be finished fairly soon. We expect the expo to be operational by the beginning of 2016, maybe even the end of 2015. They seem to be right on time. And people are very excited about it. You can see our municipal bus company, the Big Blue Bus, put a little poll on their web, do you plan to take the expo? And at the point where we took this screenshot, 97% said yes, they do. And so the Big Blue Bus, separate from our planning process, is also doing their own planning process to change their bus routes and connect to this station at Bergamot as well as the other Santa Monica Expo stations. So with all of this exciting transit coming along, the Bergamot plan is a project with a purpose. At the time that, as Sandrine mentioned, we had this project funded through the HUD Sustainable Communities Grant. At the time that we applied for the 2010 cycle, our land use and circulation element, what we call the LUCE, had just been adopted and already described what should be happening in this area. So those the initial goals and objectives for this area were set in the LUCE, and it called for the creation of a specific plan. So thanks to Mr. Obama and Mr. Donovan and all the other wonderful staff at HUD, we were able to get that going right away in 2011, and the plan was adopted in September, last September. And there are some pretty unique features of this plan. The arts community that I'll talk about in a moment. We have a creative business cluster, and so so the community within the plan area really is not, there's very little residential. There's only one property actually with residential, and the rest all sorts of businesses moving into those industrial buildings. So it's a very high demand environment. And what you can see from this, which is a page from the Bergamot Plan, is that we have a big cluster of creative offices all over this area. And here, all these little orange dots you can see in the Bergamot Art Center are galleries that have been located there for over 20 years. It's the largest cluster of art galleries west of the Mississippi. And part of our goal in developing this plan was to make that statement true for a very long time. We want to see continuation of those uses. And when you have something like a light rail station come in, that could change things or that could enhance them. And so that's what this plan is all about. As an example of what a high demand environment we have here, you can see that the rents for the lease rents for commercial uses in the west side of Los Angeles are generally very high. Here we've got like in the high twos, $3 a square foot. In Santa Monica, over $4 a square foot for office, which is known as creative office. And I have a picture later on that you can see what we're talking about. But even though the highest rents are in our downtown area, the rents in the Bergamot area are also very high. And so we know there's demand out there, so we know that putting forward a plan with requirements and very stringent requirements to direct this area to what we want it to be, we know that we can do that because people really want to be here. So the Loose created two areas. Remember, these were all basically what we used to call light manufacturing studio districts, so it was all very industrial area. The Loose created two new districts. The Bergamot Transit Village is very close to the metro station, and the mixed-use creative over here. And I'm going to point out, although we're not going to talk about it after this very much, but there is actually one more station over here, way off the edge of our slide here, and that is in the city of Los Angeles. So our border with LA is actually right along here. And so some of the businesses in this area, some of the properties are really closer to that other station, but from about here on, this expo station is the closest station. So in refining the Loose vision, the Bergamot area plan created two new districts. So we carved out from mixed-use creative this conservation district for the creative sector, and we carved out another conservation district here for the art center. And this really did come out of the public process and out of sort of getting a better understanding for what's going on in these areas and what their assets are. And in the case of the creative sector, we also wanted to protect the residential neighborhood right here, which is actually outside of our district. So, sorry, I'm going to go back for 1 second. The land use goals in the area are to create a mixed-use area to allow new land uses that didn't used to be allowed in any of these districts. So we're hoping to get more retail along here. I'll show you in a bit. This is our new Main Street, and residential uses that weren't permitted in the past, other commercial uses. The circulation goals of the plan are also a huge element of what we want to see. So what you can see, this is an existing aerial, and you've got these very large properties, big blocks. If you're at the metro station and you want to go here, say over here, there's no way through this. These are all fences, private properties. And you have a lot of surface parking around them. So the concept in the plan is to create shared parking. Similar to what Sandrine mentioned, we don't want to build too much parking or have too much parking. We want to have the best use of the parking and share it. So for instance, on this property, which is actually a very real possibility, but doesn't have to be here, it can be in another location, we could get all that surface parking off of the off of the surface into a shared pool, and that would allow us to get new streets through development agreements that we would be making with these property owners as part of their request to develop their properties. We can create connections from the expo station through properties. This would be a new street. Currently, this is not a street. And here as well, this is already a street only up to here. This part would be new, and so on, so that we create the entire grid and have a really nice walkable district with good connections for pedestrians and for bicyclists as well. So just a couple of slides on what the community process was. It was also, we're using the same expression here, not the usual suspects, although I really liked the slide that Sandrine had for the usual suspects. But we did want to reach out for this particular plan to the area property owners, the businesses, and the local artists, as I mentioned, at the Art Center. Now, these are people who are pretty busy, especially these creative businesses. They're busy creating every Hollywood film, some aspect of every Hollywood film that you've ever seen. And, you know, so they're not involved in our plan to say to them, hey, you know, there's going to be maybe some nearby cafes for you, and there's going to be some, you know, better streets, and you're going to be able to ride your bike more comfortably, and, you know, these are some of the things we're looking at, and get their viewpoints on what could happen in this area. So we had this long series of workshops, and I'm sure many of you do this in your plans. We felt that it was really important for us in our plan to acknowledge the people who were involved in the community. This is actually one of 2 pages in the plan that lists the people that were involved and helped us create this plan. People really do like to see themselves in the plan, and so I'm just throwing that in, that, you know, recommend that in your plan, make sure you do that, because that gets you a lot of great political points there. So went through that process. Now you understand the area and our environment. And so, again, how do you keep your plan off the shelf, as the subject of our webinar is today? And people open it once and it looks boring. They never open it again. So you got to organize it from readability, for people to be able to very quickly grasp what's in the plan, what are we talking about. So we used, again, you know, infographics and all sorts of illustrations. And what we did in our introduction, in our executive summary, actually, is to let people know what's in this plan in really a nutshell. Like, where can you find the development standards? If you want the design guidelines, what's in all of these chapters? And so we created these graphics to help guide people through the plan, so that they could, you know, really understand what the plan is about. Using the graphics, we found, and we found that in some of our other more recent plans that we've done, really helps people understand difficult concepts. So I chose this example because after all of the community meetings and trying to understand, you know, what could really be possible in this area, we came up with this urban forum concept that, in this very simple graphic, really lets you know, what does this area look like in the future? Like, what we, the planners, what we have in our head, and how do we express that to our community? So we're kind of calling this thing the tuning fork. It kind of looks like a tuning fork here. What it is this is an existing street. This is Olympic Boulevard. Here's the Expo Station, the Art Center. This is a very wide and today industrial and not very exciting street with overhead wires, and in our concept here, this is going to be our new Main Street. So this concept really easily and quickly communicates the idea of the retail focus of this area. This is a new street as well that would cut through, and you know, this was a very successful way to explain what it is we wanted to convey. So you can make it attractive, make your plan attractive also by using some great photos. The one on the left is Red Bull, which is their headquarters, is here in our plan area, and this is just a fantastic redo of an old industrial building. It's just amazing inside. They were kind enough to allow us to use their conference room actually for a little forum that we did with local architects so that we could have a comfortable and creative environment to talk about some out-of-the-box ideas that we put into our plan for flexible development requirements. And on the left here, these are other places, not in our area, but they convey the idea of what we'd like to see in the future. Infographics, I chose these two to include in the presentation because I wanted to also illustrate where we've taken some pretty complex concepts and put them into a very easy, understandable form. So this one on the right, for example, is our explanation of what is a Transportation Management Association. So this is an organization that today does not exist, but it's critical that it exists in the future in order to implement all of our transportation demand management strategies to reduce trips, to get incentives and all sorts of resources out to, especially to the smaller businesses that are not large enough to have their own transportation reduction manager, which is actually a requirement for large businesses. But for small businesses, and there are going to be a lot of small businesses in this area, how do you get them to join in and help the trip reduction? So this explains what their duties are in a very easy to understand and graphic way. Photo simulations are great. They can be expensive, but I highly recommend putting at least a couple of them into your plan in the most important locations. This one, for example, is in our conservation district, and it conveys the existing today and the future possibilities for that area. And then our plan, although it isn't in the unusual magazine style that Burlington did, it is in a it is a very sort of attractive, unified design where each chapter can immediately convey what it is that you can find inside. So that's about the attractiveness of the plan, and now the question, the very big question for all of us when we're putting these plans together is how do you keep them off the shelf and keep them getting implemented? And that's really an ongoing challenge for us as planners. So we have an implementation section in our plan, and that implementation section includes a whole range of tools. We had an economics consultant for this project who really helped us look at the different things that we wanted to do and try to figure out what are the right ways to fund the different activities. So this graphic at the bottom tells you, well, some of it you're going to get from developers. What kinds of things with funding could you get from your developers themselves, which from the businesses, from other users, from the state and federal, from the city. So all of that together, those are the sources, the different sources, and their different sources are appropriate for different types of activities. So we expect to have both public investment and private investment, and we also realize that some of it is quite organic. Some of it's just going to happen. Some of it started happening before we even got the plan adopted, and some of it really needs to be directed, like the TMA example and some of the other larger activities that really won't happen unless the city actively directs it. So our implementation plan is a phased approach. We have each project in the plan is put into one of these 3 phases. So we're already here where we're implementing this phase. And this is an example of the pages in the plan that take every single implementation project that we came up with, a little more description of what it is. And in the first phase, because this is the page of the of phase 1, we also did some rough cost estimating for the capital improvement project. These projects here you can see are already funded. This is funded by Expo. They're going to do some streetscape improvements along with the station. And some of it is funded by the city, the buffer park. I'll talk about a little bit further on. So in the area of directed activity, we started after the plan was released, and while we were in that process of trying to get it implemented, we already started just going out to the community with some grant money that we had and some opportunities that we had, and we do have a rideshare program at the city, and specifically reaching out to them in a series of luncheon seminars or meet and greets or whatever. So people that work in the area, they will come out for a free lunch, and since there's no such thing as a free lunch, they have to listen to us talk about how they might think about alternative means of transportation. And we had some success with this, actually. One, the food was very good, and two, people met each other. So it's kind of funny, but this picture, which we really like, is a picture of a bunch of people meeting for the first time. They all work in the area. None of them knew each other, and they all live in the same area, somewhat further away from Santa Monica. I don't remember exactly where this group was from, but they are forming a van pool. So we got 300 participants, actually, out of this series of lunches, and really, in the end, it comes down to individual people figuring out another way to come besides driving, and that's implementation. So the next step for implementation, actually, no, not even after the plan was adopted. This is from before the plan was adopted. During our process of outreach, where we were going out to the community and doing the series of workshops, we started really feeling the anxiety of the gallery owners. And so we made a decision to kind of shift our process for a bit, and we stopped. We stopped the regular overall streetscape concept development and focused on the Art Center for about 4 months. And in that time, we went out, talked to the gallery owners. We realized that this Art Center, which is right there at the expo station, is the heart of the plan, and it's the heart of the idea of the plan, and it's the physical heart of the plan right next to the expo station. So in this process, we got an idea from the community about what could be done on the city-owned part of the Art Center. And I just want to show you here, this privately owned part is part of the Art Center, but our planning process, because that isn't our land, really focused on the city-owned part of the center. We met with the galleries. We met with the museum owner. There's a museum that is on the privately owned portion. And what we came up with is an overall concept. So this concept got put into the plan, but not only did it get put into the plan, it got moved over to our economic development department as the basis for them to issue an RFP to find a development partner, a developer who would work with the city. And what this concept shows is conservation over here of these older buildings. This building here as well would stay. Some of the buildings would be, this one here actually was already demolished by Expo in order to build the station. Moving the museum over here, doing some shared parking, a couple of other museums. This one, the idea could be a hotel. And overall, what this does is it brings activity to the Art Center, but it conserves the character of the Art Center, and it preserves the uses. And what we're hoping is that it preserves those galleries so that they remain for a long time to come. So the RFP went out. A particular developer has been identified as staff's top choice, and that was brought to the council actually only this week. And the city council had its first discussion. They did not make a decision, but they gave some more direction to look into some more issues. But within about 60 days, hopefully this partnership will be agreed to, and they'll start negotiating, and we'll get an art center. And the exciting thing for us who worked on the Bergamot plan out of all of this is that rather than this being a new discussion, this is a discussion based on a concept that came out of all of this community activity and this planning that is integrated with the whole of the Bergamot area, and not just sort of a standalone look at the Art Center. So this slide is just some examples of the organic creative office development, which is already happening, and the directed kind of activity that we're going to have to see, shared parking, which will need to be privately built, but it's really going to come with a lot of city direction. So the other part of the implementation is obviously the private sector taking you up on your ideas and coming in with their projects that comply with the plan. So we have all these triangles are projects that are in process. The ones with the A are the ones that are already approved, and this one here at the what's called the Papermate Factory, and it's also known as the Hines project. Hines is the current developer. Went to the City Council and it was approved only a couple of weeks ago. So things are just happening up to the moment. I updated this only this week, so things are happening all the time. You see there's a lot of sales going on. There's a lot of interest in property in this area. And I wanted to just focus for a moment on, because this is really connected with the implementation, on some of the negotiated terms of this project at Papermate. So as I said, this is a very key location for the whole implementation of the Bergamot Plan, along with the Art Center here. And what would be included in this agreement that was approved is the Nebraska extension, which is this road here. So this road would then come from the street through here and connect to the other main street. 2 new roads through the site, some signalization crossings from over Olympic Boulevard here. This can't really see in this picture, but this is very wide and busy street. So we want people to be able to get to the entrance on this side of the station, as well as the entrance from here. There is very aggressive transportation demand management requirements in the DA, and including $3 million for seed money for that TMA, that Transportation Management Association that I mentioned, which is so important. They'd be also providing bike share, money for the buffer parks, some money for child care, cultural programs, all sorts of stuff. And it's a mixed-use project, so it's commercial, and it's, I think, 60% commercial, 40% residential, unless I have that backwards. But the residential includes 93 deed-restricted housing units. So those range from extremely low-income units to what we're calling workforce housing, 150% of AMI. Because Santa Monica is a really expensive housing market, middle-income families find it hard to move here as well. So it isn't just the low-income that struggle, it's even the middle income. And so this project has a really innovative idea that comes right out of the plan to provide deed-restricted housing for a certain number of units for middle-income families, so that there's more of that range of households that can afford to live in that area, this area. And keep in mind that a household living here is going to have lower transportation costs, so that will also help. So all of these things are going to be implemented from this project. So it's really exciting, and this is just a rendering of that future street connecting to the light rail. Implementation began before the approval of the plan, the adoption of the plan in September, when this is a property right next to the Art Center, also owned by the city, actually, and the city negotiated with Agensis, a large medical company, and said, well, we need to have pedestrian connectivity getting to the Art Center. So this is well in advance, 3 years that it was completed before the station is going to be operational. But the planning for it was already there. And so this is a beautiful art walk that will take, there's a neighborhood way down at the end of here that had absolutely no connection to the Art Center without going on Olympic Boulevard, which had no sidewalks. And it's, so now there's this beautiful pedestrian path. One of the things we're going to be working on and is going to be also critical, is establishing an assessment district for streetscape or lighting or landscaping or all of those, so that we can take this street from here to here. This is in the conservation district, so we're not going to have big projects that are going to develop a streetscape in front of their own properties here. We're going to have a lot of smaller projects and a lot of adaptive reuse. So the only way to really get the street is to find a larger investment source, possibly through the city and through grants, but also even more importantly, looking to getting the property owners themselves interested enough to vote for and fund an assessment district. So we need to get over a 50% vote to create an assessment district. So the building up of that is going to be, it's going to take a while. It's going to be very strategic, but that's also an implementation measure that we're going to be getting started on this is in our short-term plan. So wanted to also quickly go over some of our tools that we have for implementing new open space. And there's a whole range of tools, and as you could see, as this is an industrial area, there's very little green there at the moment. So some of the tools the plan includes are, first of all, the development standards. So new projects are going to have plazas opening up to the street. They're going to have a certain amount of open space, private open space for the residential project or the mixed-use project. The streets are an important open space. We have a street typology, that every single street in the plan has a description of what it should be, what kinds of, how wide it should be, what kind of landscaping, parklets, things like that. And beyond the development standards, for the larger projects, we're going to negotiate for community benefits for even more open space, maybe a park. This is the location that we've come up with. It's owned by the gas company. It's a large parking lot. This could be a park in the future, and and other city projects. So the interagency collaboration I wanted to highlight. This is Santa Monica College. It's their AET campus. KCRW, if you're familiar with the radio station, is broadcast from Santa Monica College, and this is their new home here. So this is actually under construction already, and based on the direction that the plan was going and the preliminary input, that Santa Monica College was there and they were paying attention, they created this big open plaza that will add open space onto this, called Stewart Street. And this is they discussed with us that they're going to fence it probably back here between the two buildings so that this part of it is all very open, and it's a location where they can do bike share, which is coming to the city of Santa Monica fairly soon. Here's another picture of that plaza. And what we're really excited about here, that these streets, the green streets, as I was saying, that each have specification in the plan. We're going to be getting these streets, actually. We're going to be getting the complete street here paid for through this project. This part is being paid for through 3 projects happening here. These we're still working on the funding for. And here's that park I mentioned. And just a couple of weeks ago, we met with Santa Monica College, and because they're approved through the state and not through the city, there's a certain amount of negotiation that has to go on. We can't require them to install the sidewalks per plan, but we met with them and convinced them that it would be to their advantage to take this long stretch of Pennsylvania Avenue, which is going to be going from one-way to two-way and being changed around quite a lot. They're going to install the wide sidewalks and the landscaping and everything we want per plan right here, which is, a very significant stretch of the street and is really going to set the tone for what the streets in the future can be in Santa Monica. So implementation happening there. The city had to compromise when the Expo line was being developed, when they were establishing where the stations would be, they were looking for a location for their maintenance facility. And nobody was happy about the fact that they chose a property right here in Santa Monica as the maintenance facility for this whole line. And particularly not this neighborhood over here, south of that maintenance facility. So in negotiating with them, they agreed to give us a strip of land, which you can see in the illustration below, for a buffer park. So they've given us the land for the buffer park, but not really the money to do it. So the implementation of this park, also a Phase 1 priority, is being funded in a few different ways. And one of them is, well, as you already saw, the $2 million through that development agreement that's going to the park. They need about $4 million. And another $1 million is going to be, we've just found out that we're going to be receiving almost $1 million from a state housing-related parks grant. This is based on the fact that the city has developed a lot of affordable housing units, and so there's a whole formula based on all of those that is going to add up to about $1 million. So that's going to go into the buffer park. And then open space fees required on various other projects altogether will help to fund this park. And these are a few preliminary sketches of ideas that could be in the park. There could be more passive recreation. There could be more active kinds of things, even possibly community gardens. So the community planning process for that park is going to take place separately, probably fairly soon as money is being identified for the implementation. Wanted to just to quickly go over how we're implementing these conservation districts, the creative sector up here, the art center down here. And this is mainly being done through the development standards that are included in the plan. So the reduced FAR, the reduced height relative to what is allowed in the other nearby districts, is being balanced by some incentives for adaptive reuse or just, expansion within the building. Some of these buildings have very high ceilings, can easily put in mezzanines, but they might be at the end of the FAR they're permitted. So what we have put into the plan, a couple of innovative ideas, that these mezzanines can be built within the framework of the existing building without parking and without being counting as floor area, and also using the historic building code. So California and probably most other states have what's called a historic building code, which allows flexibility from the regular state building code, which is very prescriptive. It allows the building official to let the applicant use some different ways of meeting the safety requirements without the actual prescriptive code requirements, and that lets older buildings maintain their character even as they meet newer standards for safety. So we applied that building code to all of the structures within our conservation districts, even though they are not technically historic or landmarks. And so these are some of the tools that we're using to help the businesses there expand a little, get a little bit more elbow room without actually building new buildings and destroying that atmosphere that they have. So our biggest challenges ahead, I think, are really the forming and activating new frameworks for implementation. So we need to continue to get interdepartmental cooperation. This is always a challenge. It's probably a challenge for many of you who are listening as well, that you've got planning, you've got public works, everybody has their thoughts and their priorities. Because they were involved in this plan, and because they were part of our interdepartmental planning committee for the Bergamot Plan, we're now continuing to engage them as the implementation team. For example, we had our public works department submit a CIP request for some of the streetscape projects. So those are things that are within their realm, and things like that. But really getting those structures, keeping a champion, and it seems like planning has to continue to be the champion, but not all of this implementation. In fact, much of it is not within our purview. So, so this is a challenge ahead. Setting up that TMA structure, as I discussed earlier, hopefully we'll have some funding for it. But even though we have $2 million promised in that development agreement, I don't think that that's money that they need to give us until they pull a building permit. That could still be a couple of years. So we need to set up a TMA structure before that. So that's a challenge too. And beginning that process to find the assessment district. So these sorts of structural setups, those are the challenges that we're really looking at for the very near future to create this neighborhood, this future neighborhood of the Bergamot area plan. So thank you for listening. I'm going to leave this slide up in a second. Let's see. Hello?
All right,
Hello?
great. Hello. We can go ahead and move to some questions and answers. Let's see here. Oh, and I think, you know what, Liz, I think your slide just went away.
Okay, is it back now?
No, not yet.
Okay, oh, wait, I think I need to press the...
There you go.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Great. Okay, so
right.
let's just, we have about 10 minutes. I think the first batch of questions will probably go to Sandrine, mostly about the Burlington plan. If you could just go into a little more detail about the budget and any private-public partnerships and budget versus actual costs, things like that. Can you just kind of go a little more into detail about that, if you would?
Yeah, so the budget for the plan and actual cost, do they mean actual cost of the implementation or
Yes.
still of the planning process per se?
Either,
Okay,
both.
planning process. Oh, okay. So as far as the planning process is concerned, our budget, our total budget for the entire project, which includes the 3 phases that I mentioned during my presentation of the existing conditions analyses, the planning process, which resulted in Plan BTV and the plan, and the farm-based code. That was all included in the same. We had just shy of $500,000 to get that done and underway. I would say that we spent about $200,000 in the first phase of the project, another $200,000 for the planning process and the plan development and so on, and then the rest is being spent on the farm-based code. So you can, just shy of $100,000 for the farm-based code. If questions are related to the plan itself and how much that was really done as part of the contract that we had with our consultants, which are the Town Planning and Urban Design Collaborative. They created the plan under their contract with us. So to pinpoint a cost for that is a little bit difficult because it was part of the overall contract, and they did the charrette with us and all sorts of other things. But I can tell you that the printing of the plan, we printed about 1,000 copies, and that was about 10 grand to print the plan per se. And as far as cost breakdown, I don't know what else I can, it's hard to kind of break it down because it was just overall contracts with our consultants to get this done.
And, if others have questions, they can always email you.
Yes, please do, absolutely, and I can provide more information on that. And as far as the actual cost of implementation, that's also kind of hard to pinpoint. If someone has a specific question about a specific project, I can certainly offer some information about the money that we're spending on that. But a lot of what we show and discuss in the plan is private property. So it's really going to be up to the private landowners to decide if they do want to redevelop their property, and hopefully we'll follow what we talk about in the plan. And as far as everything that is citywide, street improvements and public property improvements and so on, we haven't. We are actually now in the process of sort of putting an amount, a cost amount attached to that, and figure out where the funding is going to come from. And it's going to mostly come from different sources of funding, just like Liz talked about for Santa Monica. We have a tax increment financing district in the downtown area as well as the waterfront. And we just got this downtown TIF district, so there's definitely going to be a lot of money coming there for a lot of the public infrastructure improvements. We have a couple of huge projects coming online in the downtown that, if they do move forward, we'll see a lot of public investment as well through that particular source of funding. But I don't really have a lot of the specifics. This is something we're going to sort of figure out as we go, because a lot of what we talk about in the plan still needs more refined construction and design documents and so on to actually happen. So we don't have a lot of information on cost at this time, unfortunately.
Great. With that, while we're on to you, did the use of the design charrette, did it create false expectations by participants, considering that in the end the plan approval is a political decision?
I think we were very careful. That's a great question. We were very careful during the planning, during the charrette, not only the charrette, but the entire planning process, to remind people that what we talk about in the plan and what we discuss in the plan is really what could be. It's there to spur the imagination. And by no means, it is going to be exactly what we're showing in the plan, but it's concepts and ideas. And we had to remind people of that very often, because people kind of got stuck on, is that building going to look like this? No, not necessarily. We're just showing this as an example of what could be. So we had to remind folks of that. But I think from the political point of view, and we deal with that a lot in Burlington, I think our process included so many people, and there were so many opportunities for folks to be engaged and participate and give input, that in the end, when the plan came to City Council for adoption, it was unanimously supported by the councilors. And what we basically told the councilors is, we had over 3,000 of your constituents involved and engaged in this process. And they all agree in the end, and they all like this plan. So if you don't support it and adopt it, then you're going against, what everybody just said and worked on for so long during the last 18 months. So we manage expectations, I would say, during the planning process pretty well, so we didn't have that issue in the end.
Can I add to that? What we found here is very similar, but when you've got a lot of public process and you can really show it to your council and show the support, and we also really focused on, when it came to those meetings, calling some of those people and saying, please come and testify at the meeting. And that really gives your council cover to adopt this. In our case, of course, we already had the direction from council in the general plan, and probably you have that as well. But for them to go that next step and adopt this more specific plan, having all of that public outreach, being able to point to it, makes it easier for the council to make the difficult political decisions that we know are going with the direction that they're interested in, because they told us so in adopting the general plan.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, the next question. A lot of folks, I'm just trying to filter as much as I can since we're running out of time. A lot of folks seem to be really impressed by the visuals of both of these plans and these magazines, and just sort of it seems to just garnish a great attitude. Could either of you just speak more to these magazines or to these publications? Were they done in-house or by the consultants? Is it something that can be done in-house? You know, what was thought out in terms of the magazines and your publications as to what you would highlight? You know, why did you highlight what you did? Things like that. If you could both just speak to that.
Do you want to start?
Sure, I can start. This is Sandrine in Burlington. So our magazine was, it was laid out by our consultants. We don't have graphic design professionals in the city that could have done that for us, although I could have attempted to do it, but I definitely wouldn't have done as good of a job. And I know that they did it in Adobe InDesign, which we now have here in the city, so I'm now able to make changes to the document if I need to. And I have been learning Adobe InDesign myself and started to use it actually for quite a few things now that we're doing. So I'm starting to play with it, but at the time we didn't have the capacity internally to do something like this. You know, I think the visuals are just so important, and really the way the plan is laid out for us, well, or the magazine I should say, was really a result of the public process. It was a result of you know, what we heard from people and during the charrette, and yeah. So,
okay. And on our side here in Santa Monica, I would say it was a combination. So some of these graphics, like the street, which I didn't show them all, but you know, the streetscape graphics that we had, the concept graphic of the urban design concept and all of that. A lot of those were developed by the consultants that we hired, you know, through this grant with HUD. But then a lot of it was also done by our own staff. So, particularly my co-manager in this process, Peter, is really highly graphically oriented. We had a wonderful intern who did some of it as well, and we also worked in InDesign. So I think we had a combination of both the assistance of the consultants and the in-house designing. But again, same program. Adobe InDesign is really versatile, and if you get that in-house and have someone in-house who can use it, you can do some great things and save a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, as much as we in Burlington didn't do this in-house, if you have someone who has some, you know, graphic design capabilities, that's definitely something that can be done, and it's probably something that we'll be doing in-house or attempt to anyway in the future. It's just a lot of work.
Great. Thank you. Well, we have quickly run out of time. Thank you to both of you, Sandrine and Liz, for joining us today. These are two wonderful projects, and the outcomes are outstanding. This is great. So just to recap quickly, I'm going to take the controls back over to me.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you. And just a reminder to go ahead and log your CM credits. I'm getting a lot of questions that folks are still having some issues logging their credits. They're getting notices that it falls outside your AICP reporting period. Please contact National about that. I don't know why that's happening to some of you, so please do contact them. But again, on the screen is the event number, and the webcast will be available on our YouTube channel, and we'll have a PDF of it available. So thanks again, everyone, for joining. This was a great crowd, and we have tons of questions, so I apologize we didn't get through all of them. But everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.